All right, let's see if I got a video that'll play here. Maybe.
Most people think a church is all about what happens on the stage every weekend, but we know it goes way beyond that. There's that woman who faithfully holds babies in the nursery week in and week out. Plus, there's that couple who gently leads younger couples, helping them figure out all that a marriage really can be. Plus, there's that guy who's always up for driving a minivan full of teenagers to their next youth event. Plus, there are key leaders who make visionary decisions about the direction of the church and are just fine with serving outside of the spotlight. Plus, the guys and gals who run sound and make sure that the right words are on the screen at the right time. Plus, the good people filling the seats who may or may not have their act all together. Side note, no one has their act all together. Add to that the man who arrived early today to pray with anticipation over every empty seat. A seat that would be filled by you today. We could go on, but you get the idea. When these less than perfect people are all added together, we're left with a special place full of special people. It's a group of people who are all figuring out how best to follow Jesus so that our lives leave his residue behind in every location and in every conversation. And somewhere in the middle of all this imperfection, we believe that God is smiling and that the bride of Christ is being revealed as beautiful and redemptive in spite of her flaws. And together, we're becoming something that God simply calls church. So can we count you in?
Pretty good little video to introduce the fact that I'm still asking for people to consider teaching classes. We don't have the people yet to man some of these things, and some of these things that you saw there we don't have. We don't have that faithful lady that holds babies every week, mainly because we don't have any babies to hold. But those things are coming. Those things are coming. We don't have that faithful guy who drives the teenagers to every event in the van. We have the van. We just don't have the guy yet. So, but as the video says, we're all a work in progress, and none of us are perfect. We're going to talk a little bit today from Acts 19 and about some of the side effects of being a Christian. You know, everything has side effects. I'm sure that as this congregation looks around, you know, and we're mostly aging, all of us are probably on some kind of medication. Is there anybody in here that doesn't take a pill for something? Yeah, we got one or two. I didn't until, like 2 or 3 years ago. I didn't take any kind of medication, but I do now. And some of you probably take multiple pills every day for different types of illnesses. Some of the medications that you take might be really, really necessary, and if you missed it or couldn't afford it, it might be like a life or death thing. And some people, have medications that they take, and if they didn't take it, it might cause some kind of discomfort or maybe long-term problems like, blood pressure medication. It probably wouldn't kill you if you missed it one day, but if you missed it over a certain length of time, the blood pressure went up, you could have a stroke, all kinds of things. And like I said, I only take one heart medication, but my wife, she has a bunch of them. What's interesting if you start trying to study what all these things do, every medication you get, your pharmacist gives you some literature. And you get this paper stapled to your little bag with your pills in there or whatever it is. And have you ever tried to read any of that stuff and bothered to read it? I can remember a day when I was a little guy that you just trusted the doctor. You know, I mean, the doctor handed you something or he gave you a prescription, you just went home and took it. You didn't know what it was, didn't really care what it was because this guy's a doctor, you know. I mean, he's bound to know what he's doing, right? He's supposed to know what's good for you anyway. But today, people like to be informed, and there's nothing wrong with it. Actually, that's a good thing. I meet many people who can tell you exactly what medications they take and what they do and exactly the amounts and all that. But you know what's really scary is if you get those papers and you start reading the side effects of all these things that these medications can do to you. Now, I remember getting a prescription for one thing there at one point, and I happened to look on there, and the pharmacist was standing there, and I said, wait a minute, this causes this and this and this and this. And he said, don't worry about that. He says, you know, the way that works is they have this test group of people that they give the medications to, and he said, if one person in the group comes up with that illness or that thing, he says, then they have to list that as a side effect. But in rare instances, it does happen. It's just one of the things that happen because you take medication. Have you ever had a dream of doing something and it came true? You made good on this dream, this dream thing you had. Maybe it was a business idea, and you turned it into a profit. Maybe you were really good at a sport or something, and you began to play this sport at a higher level than most people ever get to. Whatever it was, most of us have dreams. We have dreams of making it to the big time. The top of the list, you know. I've never really been successful at anything, but I've had some friends that were. I had some friends that were fairly successful, and they made a lot of money. They had a business, and they made a lot of money in the business, but I've also known some people that ultimately lost everything. Their business was very successful, but then somehow or another something happened and it went down the drain. Do you know what the biggest fear for a person that's rich is? You'd think they wouldn't have any fears. You know, you'd think if I've made it, so to speak, if I'm that wealthy guy now that looking down my nose at the world, that you wouldn't have a care in the world. You look at those people with plenty of money, and you just think, what in the world would they have to worry about? But they really have a lot more to worry about than you and I do. Sadly, the biggest thing that they worry about is they worry about losing their money. Even though they have a lot of money and they have invested in different places, they worry about losing. So we're going to look at a story from the book of Acts this morning. And an instance when the Apostle Paul was causing a lot of trouble for this guy. And he wasn't really trying personally to cause trouble, but the message he was preaching had a side effect. Acts 19, verses 23 through 27. And it says, about that time, serious trouble developed in Ephesus concerning the way. It began with Demetrius, a silversmith, who had a large business manufacturing silver shrines of the Greek goddess Artemis. He kept many craftsmen busy. He called them together along with others employed in similar trades and addressed them as follows. Gentlemen, you know that our wealth comes from this business. But as you have seen and heard, this man Paul has persuaded many people that handmade gods aren't really gods at all. And he's done this not only here in Ephesus, but throughout the entire province. Of course, I'm not just talking about the loss of public respect for our business. I'm also concerned that the temple of the great goddess Artemis will lose its influence, and that Artemis, this magnificent goddess, worshipped throughout the province of Asia and all around the world, will be robbed of her great prestige. Now, lost a book. Now, Demetrius the silversmith here had a problem. He was somewhat of a specialist, I guess, in crafting silver shrines for this Greek goddess. Now, without going into a lot of detail about what this Greek goddess was, because this is not really important, I can tell you that one of the largest temples ever built was for her in Ephesus. It was so impressive that it was named one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. It was no doubt adorned with many objects that would have been priceless. But now, here comes Paul, and he starts to tell these people of Ephesus that this God that they're worshiping was not a God at all. And I like the way that the Bible uses the words of Demetrius when he says that handmade gods aren't really gods at all. Can you imagine that? A handmade God. Paul was proclaiming that there was only one God. And this was about to destroy a lucrative business. So what happens when we accept Christ into our lives? What are some of the side effects that happen to us when we believe? The next slide. Wealth! Can you believe that? No, this is not Joel Osteen standing up here. You know better than that by now. Timothy 6:6 says, "Yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth." Did you know that? Did you know that if Christ comes into your life, you will be wealthy? Now let me describe to you Christian wealth, which has very little to do with the prosperity gospel that's being preached in some churches. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines wealth as an abundance of valuable material possessions or resources. Did you know that every one of you here today has a valuable resource? Nobody knew that. I'm amazed. Some of us like to call it the Holy Bible. It is a valuable resource. While many people in the world will place a value of life based on how many zeros your bank account has, we possess something that cannot even be assigned a monetary value as far as I'm concerned. If you believe in your heart that there's a living God, then that Bible that you have should be your most important possession. In our hands, we can hold the words of the very creator of the universe. It's a collection of history books, of love songs, of poetry and instruction for our lives. It contains the greatest love story ever written. And so often we fail to live by its words. You see, many of us possess this book. I love the story I heard one time of a pastor who was invited to dinner by one of the church ladies, and boy, she really decked it out for him, you know, and she used the finest china she had and the best silverware she had. And after the meal was over and the pastor had gone home, she noticed that one of her silver spoons was missing. And it troubled her greatly, and she was thinking, surely the pastor didn't steal one of my spoons. And several months went by, and it worried her, and finally she asked the pastor to come and eat at her house again. And after the conversation was going at the meal, she just couldn't stand it any longer. And she asked the reverend if he had taken her spoon. And he said no. He said, I left it where I thought you would find it, in your Bible. You see, we can possess this book and it have no effect on us. You can go almost into any motel or hospital and there'll be a Gideon Bible sitting there, and as it sits there on that shelf, it has no effect other than just being there. But if we live its instruction, if we make its words part of our life, then we have great wealth in our lives. Next thing that's a side effect of being a Christian, a family. Ephesians 1:5 says, God decided in advance to adopt us into his own family by bringing us to himself through Jesus Christ. This is what he wanted to do, and it gave him great pleasure. Did you ever want to have a big family? Many people in here probably came from a big family. Anybody in here have like 10 brothers and sisters, maybe? Big family. Oh, we got one back there. We got a couple. Like 10 brothers and sisters. My father was from a family of 9, so I consider that pretty big. But how about this? I read about Mr. and Mrs. Fyodor Vasily. With his first wife, she gave birth to 69 children. 16 pair of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets. And this happened back between 1725 and 1765. That means that she had 27 births. And 67 of the 69 children survived infancy. You thought your grocery bill was high. Man, I can't imagine. But besides that, this guy Vasily also had 6 sets of twins and 2 sets of triplets with a second wife. For another 18 children, meaning he fathered a total of 89 children. You just thought you had a big family, right? I didn't come from a big family, and I really don't have a whole lot of family left. I have one brother, I have a couple of nephews, and an aunt or 2 from my dad's side, but that's about it. So, sometimes that bothers me a little bit, you know? But then I start to think about how blessed I am to be part of God's family. That's another great side effect from being a Christian. You gain a family that will mean more to you than anything. I don't know how you feel, but my church family means everything to me. It means more to me than any relationship on this earth ever could. You're the people that I continually have contact with. You're the people that I can depend on when problems come up. You're the people that I someday will spend eternity with. There are people here today. There are people that I've known across the country that I'm going to be with forever. I know that when we talk about heaven, sometimes we often talk about generally seeing loved ones that's passed on, and we often think about what it will be like to stand in the presence of Jesus. All these are good things. But what about these people right here? These people right here that I'm going to be rubbing elbows with forever. I'm so blessed by that fact. I live with joy because I know that there are those of you out there that are going to be with me. And I'm thankful. And lastly, a side effect of Christianity is security. Being sure of things. Acts 1:11 says, Men of Galilee, they said, why are you standing here staring into heaven? Jesus has been taken from you into heaven. But someday he will return from heaven in the same way you saw him go. This is the account, of the two white-robed men, we assume to be angels, that appeared to the disciples as they were watching Jesus ascend up into heaven. A promise that just as they saw him go, he would return. I don't know about you, but I find comfort in that. I find security in that. As much misery as this old world can dole out, someday Jesus is coming back. If you know that, if you truly believe that, then you shouldn't live in fear in this life. If you're sure of it, if you know it, if you're secure in it, if you know that you're saved, then nothing in this world should ever worry you. Now I know I'm preaching to myself just as well as I am to you today, because sometimes I worry. Sometimes I fret over the most insignificant things, but I know in my heart, as many of you as you know this morning, that your fate is secure. That when this old heart ceases to function, that I'm going to see Jesus. I know that I'm secure in that. I know in my belief. And I know many of you feel the same way. The side effects that Demetrius experienced from Paul's preaching were not pleasant. He was looking to lose his income. Things he had worked so hard for. As people believed and people put their trust in the living God, there was no more use for these gods that were made by human hands. The side effect from that was a loss of income. But the side effects for us as Christians are all beneficial. There's not anything bad from being a Christian. They're all things that are stronger, make us better human beings. Do you know this morning what it means to follow Jesus? Do you live the Bible, or you just own the Bible? Do you count these people that are around you as your extended family, as brothers and sisters? Or are they just people you attend church with? Are you sure that if Jesus returned on the clouds today, that you'd have an eternal home with God in heaven? If you can't give a definitive answer to that, I ask you to come and pray with us this morning. I ask you to repent of those things that might be holding you back in your relationship with God. I pray today that you can realize that our time may be short. Jesus may return soon. No matter when he returns, the day may be at hand when he comes for you. Come as we sing today. Give him your life. Give him your heart. Begin to live with him.